Hello, everyone, and welcome to Manthano Parenting Conference 2022. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of this conference. And we're also very grateful to our dear friend, Rachel Turner. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for taking time. We're honored to have Rachel Turner. She's a Parenting for Faith pioneer for BFRF. British Reading Fellowship. God gave her the vision for Parenting for Faith in 2005 in response to a need in her local church, and it has grown from there. She has worked in a variety of churches as a family life pastor, children's pastor, and youth pastor since 2004. She consults, speaks at conferences, and runs training days for parents and church leaders around the UK and Europe. She offered simple, everyday approaches for parents to help their babies and toddlers connect with the God who knows them, sowing seeds of faith for the future. She's the author of Babies and Toddlers, Nurturing Your Child's Spiritual Life and Comfort in Uncertain Times. Today, she'll be talking about her book, Comfort in Uncertain Times. So, Rachel, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I have written lots of books, and in all of these books, they're sort of for different reasons. And a book that I wrote a while ago was called Comfort in the Darkness, which was about helping children create a theology of who God was in the night. And as I was writing that book, I began to think, there are lots of different circumstances where children need to grab on to who God is. And in the dark, it's something that you need to get through. You just need to get through the night, and in the morning, it'll be gone. And so you need an immediate moment. But we're in a world that has lots of uncertain times that don't go away in the morning. You know, the fear that you experience at night is the same fear that you wake up to, because uncertain times go on and on and on, whether you're experiencing war or family struggles or personal circumstances, whether it's grief or loss or transition or change. And who is God in that? When it doesn't magically go away, when you just find the peace in the moment and you still wake up and you need that peace, where is God in that? And so I wanted to create a resource that enabled families to go on this journey together, because I think that when you're in uncertain times, what we sometimes want to do is to just tell children to get through it or hang on to God, or we have these small cliches that we try to just encourage them. And I think to really persevere through difficult times of grief or loss or change, we need something more than just encouragement. We need scriptural theology that helps us grab onto who God is in uncertain times, when everything around you is changing. Who is God in this place? And so I wrote the book that has, I think, 15 biblical stories of who God is in transition and grief and change and anxiety. Who is God in that? And I wanted to give a resource that didn't just tell the story, but helped parents coach their children in finding a way to walk through it with God. So the book not only has the story, but it has conversations and questions to have with your kid and ways of prayer and connecting with God in that, so that families can go on a discipleship journey together of how to grab onto God when the world is swirling around you. How do you walk with him through it and with him in it, so that you can walk strong in the midst of the whole thing? And so that's what I wanted to give, I guess, the gift to families, to children, but particularly to parents, to say that when you're in the midst of this huge thing, you actually can walk with your kid in it well, and they can really cling on to God in it well, in a way that doesn't just get them through this situation, but sets them up for a lifetime of uncertainty, because they're always going to be in some version of uncertainty in the future. And we get the opportunity to give that to them now. How do I walk in uncertainty when I'm 8? If they can get that now, what will their lives look like and their children's lives look like if we can train and equip communities of children who grow up to be adults who are confident in who God is and change, grief, and anxiety?
Mm-hmm. That's so important. And I think it's something that we're experiencing even as at now. I mean, having gone through COVID, and you hearing wars, rumors of wars, parents who've had death in the family, loved ones pass away. Sometimes you forget that the children are experiencing those situations too. And it's maybe years later when you hear them say, oh, this is how I felt, but actually they've had to deal with it internally. And sometimes it's helpful if we as parents are working together with them as we work through it ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also children often don't have an articulation for the feelings that you feel when you're in uncertain times, because it's not quite fear and it's not quite anxiety. It's hard to name what it is. It's just this sense, and sometimes if they don't have language for it, they can't even begin to process it. And so it becomes about enduring a situation. And actually, so much of what we see in Scripture are people who learn to flourish in those uncertain times because of their connection with God. And I want children to be able to experience, come alive, and engage with God in those times. And so I wrote the book because through these stories, you can then say, do you feel a bit like this character? Or do you feel a bit like that character? Or that's really interesting. This character felt like God couldn't hear them. Do you ever feel like that? And it gives you a way of talking about it in a way that helps a child identify with something else besides name an emotion or explain what you're feeling, because that can be quite hard. And so to give a biblical place to explore feelings and experiences, and know that all of those feelings the people in Scripture experienced. Like, I love the story of Hagar and Ishmael. I really thought it was important to include some of the less, not less known, but the less talked about with children's stories, of a family breakdown and people getting sent away from everything they know and thinking that they were just going to die and laying on the floor and feeling like they were going to give up. And the fact that God heard the cries of a child without the child ever having to pray, but God responded to your heart, even if you don't have words. That's a beautiful story for children to say, that's what I feel like right now. I feel like everything's gone and I don't have any words. I don't know what to say to God. And to say, that's okay. God hears the muddle that is your heart is such a valuable story, and allows kids to say, oh, actually, that's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm feeling. Or I feel like I'm trapped on the boat and God's not doing anything. And we can then see how that's not true. And God is. And so over and over again, I just wanted to bring out stories of not just what God is doing and who he is, but also how we partner with that. How sometimes when we're experiencing injustice, we're called to speak into that injustice, even when we don't know what's going to happen. And so the book is really about giving you these biblical truths to grab onto, to identify with, and to bring, to invite a child into finding themselves within the story. And I find as parents and find ourselves in the story too sometimes.
We do, actually. We do. I mean, I read the story of the one where I think it was Lydia, and was it Claire? She was about to was it do her
in the Philippi church? In the Philippi church, yes,
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 yes.
yes. Yeah, I love that story.
Identify myself there, and the importance of giving thanks. And I thought, I actually put the book down and started to give thanks, began to name other things to be grateful and thankful for. And it actually did lift up my spirits a lot, And I'm talking about that, actually, I mean, you keep on mentioning that it helps children to have a voice. I remember someone telling me that husband was very, very sick, and so she'd asked the children to pray, and then the child goes, "But when we prayed to God when grandma was sick, and she died." Hey, that was the first time the mom was actually hearing those words.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, it's so important to give the children a voice for them to really understand God in every given situation.
Yeah. Because if we only help them find God when it's looking good, then they don't have anything to grab onto when it's not looking good. And I think sometimes we get worried that if we don't stay positive, if we don't keep encouraging them, then they'll lose their faith. But I think sometimes going with them into those dark places and saying, I know that sometimes is confusing to me, or I was in a big grief about that too. And I told God, I don't understand. And then I felt like he was holding me, and I felt like he was telling me that, that he always weaves all things together for good. And right now he's dancing with grandma, and to tell the stories of walking through those dark times is sometimes a stronger thing to give the gift to our children of than just where he is in the great times, because he is a good God in all circumstances, and to help them see where God is in those times of grief and pain, and how to keep moving forward is a really essential thing that we can give them. Because they have to keep circling around to it. Just because we say it once doesn't mean they're going to remember it in 2 years.
No.
And I think sometimes we think that it's like, oh yeah, we went.
You do actually. Yeah, you do, because we sometimes it's because we remember it.
Yeah.
So we think, oh yeah, they remember it too, but have you done some marvelous activity when they were 5, and then, when they're 10, you go, do you remember when? And they're like, no.
No, not at all. It was so great. But also their experience of the past changes too. So when they were 5 and grandma died, they may have been very positive about it because they were focused on heaven. Children around 5 or 6 are very focused on heaven and understanding that. And so that seems really positive. But when they're 9, they're looking back going, wait a minute, we prayed a lot and God didn't heal grandma. What's that about? And so just because they had a positive, found a God-connected experience then, doesn't mean that as they review their life, they're not going to have those questions again. And we've got to lay down that theological framework so that they're constantly learning and being discipled to apply those truths to their current life, to their past life, and their future life.
So true. One thing we do in the our parenting masterclass is that we offer, one of the pillars of the framework is having a heart-based approach to parenting. We want parents to understand that behavior is actually a form of communication. And that view also holds true for parents. What do you advise a parent to do if they are being easily triggered or feeling tired? And it could be because of a challenge or a situation that they're facing at the moment that's causing irrational thoughts, hurt, pain, grief. So what would you advise a parent to do as they seek to comfort their child during those times?
I think that's a really great question. I love the way you describe it as heart-based parenting. I think that is such an essential part of parenting. And that can be hard, though, when we're also experiencing the same things that are affecting our children. If their grandparent died, that means one of our parents died. And that means our grief is actually huge. And so there is if our children are experiencing uncertainty with life, sometimes it's because we lost our job or we're struggling financially and they're experiencing uncertainty. But often the uncertainty they're experiencing is often bigger with us. And that can place us in a bit of a difficult place, because to coach someone else through it, you sort of feel like you've got to come out the other end of it. You got to feel like I've got it sorted, child. Let me help you through your. Yes, exactly. And we're kind of used to that, particularly things like they're scared of the dark. They're experiencing deep terror, but we're fine. And so we're sort of used to some of their fear experiences of being in a positive, settled place. But when it comes to parenting children through uncertain times, often their behavior is demonstrating the feelings that they can't quite articulate right now. But we're often not in the best place either, because we're experiencing grief and uncertainty and irrational thoughts, and it's the spiral of thoughts that go down, and our children's behavior isn't, we don't necessarily have the mental capacity right now to think, what is a heart-based approach to this? And it can be hard to feel like you're not parenting at your best and you are on the edge. And so for me, I guess my encouragement to you is that you don't have to have it all sorted before you parent a kid through something, because because we'll never then parent them through some of the most important things if we wait till we've got out the other end of it. And so what we can do is protect them from the worst of it and actually give them insight into the best of it. Because the journey that we go on of acknowledging our feelings and going, I'm feeling a bit wobbly right now, or whatever phrase you use, of me telling myself, I know I'm not feeling really secure right now, and how I take it to God and say, God, I'm not feeling great. Please hold me. Please give me strength. Please give me a verse. All of our normal processes of dealing with those emotions is actually essential for our children to see. And so if we can give them a small window into it, then they learn how to walk a process. So if I'm experiencing deep grief, and my kids know that I'm in grief, obviously, to be able to say, sometimes I feel a bit wobbly because I'll be in the kitchen and I'll remember something that my mom, your grandma, used to do. And it just makes me want to cry. And I'm okay with that, because when I cry, it's because I'm actually really happy that I had grandma in my life and I'm missing her right now. And that's okay. And if you ever see me crying, that's okay. A little hug helps, because what I'm doing is crying. I'm talking to God about how I feel about her. And anytime I feel that big sadness, I go to God with it. And that's what you'll see. And so that you're not saying, come watch the displays of the depths of everything, but to say, this happens to me too. And when it does, this is who God is in it. And it's that this is who God is in it is the important bit for them. So we're not flinging when the doors open and saying, look at everything. We're saying, you'll see these little moments, or when I'm feeling like I have thoughts that I know that's not real thoughts. They still come in my head. They still make me think about what if. But the Bible says this about the what ifs. It says, don't worry about tomorrow. And when I'm stuck in that, what I tell God is, God, this is what I'm worried about. And so I thank you for all you are. And that's what I do when I have thoughts like that. Do you have thoughts like that? And every time that you experience something that you think would be helpful to let your kid know that that's something that all humans experience. And this is how to cope with it. This is how we go to God with it. This is what God's been whispering to you about it. It's these little tiny 30-second conversations when they catch you crying, just saying, don't worry, me and God are talking right now. I'll be with you in a second. And just those little moments that they look around and go, God is everywhere in uncertainty and grief. And to say, this is where God is right now. It's not about saying, I'm always happy. It's about saying, when you experience any of these things, this is where God is in it. And I'm still working on that right now. I'm still working on my thought patterns. I'm still working on not feeling wobbly. I'm going to find my peaceful place, and then I'm going to come talk to you. Just being able to not feel like you have to hide completely from your kids, but letting them know that you and God have it. They're not responsible for your feelings, but God is responsible to walk you through it, just like he's going to be responsible to walk them through it. And so to give yourself permission to be on a journey with God and to let your kids see where God is in all of that, I think is a really significant thing for children.
Oh, that is lovely. That is so, so true, because even if they didn't go through that particular situation, there are always other situations. And I mean, if you're not role modeling, that side of things to them, they will learn somewhere else.
Yes, or they feel like they're failing God if they're struggling, and I think that often can happen if we're only saying God wants you to be happy and cheer up and be the positive things. They miss out on who God is in the hard times, but they also feel like they're failing God if they have irrational thoughts, or if they have, if they're experiencing grief and can't quite find joy in this moment. And I think they then see less of God, and they, because he is the God of all of this. And they need to know they're not failing when they struggle, that they're just experiencing another human experience that God can speak into and pull us through. Sometimes it means he'll lift us out of the murky pit and put us on the pedestal. Sometimes it means he sits with us in the prison and sings with us. We see that in both. We see God calming the storm, and we see him calling people out of the boat to walk in the storm. And whichever one God's doing, God's at work. And to help them know that they're not failing God to be human. Their job is just to look for God and pull him close, and walk on his faithfulness is the key.
So lovely, so true. And those are words to actually end this session on. So thank you so much for those encouraging words. I'm sure we've got lots of things that we can take home with. Just to say, how can the audience access more of your resources?
Sure. Parenting for Faith is the organization that holds sort of all of this. There's a website called parentingforfaith.org, and you can go to that, or .org.uk. I can't remember now. Just Google Parenting for Faith. You'll find it.
We actually have the link going on right
excellent. There is, I think, 10 books. I just turned in my 10th book right now. Some of it's about the comfort ones. Some of it is applying things, parenting for faith to babies and toddlers. As you said, the one I just turned in is about teenagers, and particularly how as parents, we walk alongside the spiritual life of our teenagers. And there's also some church leadership books in there about how we as churches can come alongside parents and really champion them as the front line of discipleship of children and young people. So all of that is on the Parenting for Faith website. We also have weekly podcasts and lots more on there. So please do access that.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we will. So now is the lovely part. I know you've shared a lot and given us a lot of tips to take home, go home away with, but can you please give us a take-home activity so that we can actually beginning to put and reflect what you've just shared?
Sure. My activity is a light one, I guess. So often I find that our kids don't hear our stories from our past. And there are some great stories that you as parents have of times that you struggled, times that you were in grief or change or anxiety. And God really was with you in that. And my challenge to you is, while you're walking down the road, or while you're in a car, or while you're on a long bus journey, just turn to your kid and say, did I ever tell you about the time where I thought I was going to die? I'll go, no. You go, let me tell you a story. And just tell them a story of a time where you were doing that. I did that for my son when a time that I thought he was going to die. He was 2 months old, and I was in a bathroom, and I had this amazing experience with God when Caleb couldn't breathe, and what God did in our little family in a bathroom in the middle of the night when I was in deep fear and anxiety. And just try and tell that story of the situation you were in and what God did. And just open that up and see. They may not jump on it. They may just go, that's interesting. Or you may want to say, have you ever experienced a time like that? And you may want to open up that conversation. It's great. But getting used to just telling your stories is a really valuable thing for kids. I've known teenagers come to me and say, I remember this one time my parent told me the story 10 years ago of this one time, and it's been how I've based everything that I've ever experienced of fear on that. And your stories are incredibly powerful. And so do tell them. That's my challenge for you in your take-home activity. Tell a story of grief, loss, or anxiety in your past, and where God was in it and how he helped.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. So parents, we're going to be our authentic self and give our children a story. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for our session today. It's been lovely having you.
Thank you for having me.
And parents, don't forget, we have our Facebook group community where we'll be talking a lot about this activity that we've just been given, and we'll also be having prayers, a time to just reflect and bring a message of hope to each and every one of us. So until then, you take care and God bless. Bye-bye.